Welcome to the Afghanistan Project Podcast. I'm your host, Beth Bailey, and my guest today is Nasir, who worked for the former Afghan government and now has his life under he's living in serious duress inside of Afghanistan and has a Priority 1 referral to the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. Nasir, it's really great to have you, to let you tell your story of what you did for your country, for my country, and what's happening to you now as a result of these executive orders that have paused and suspended USRAP processing. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honor, honestly. Please tell me, we exchanged an email before this and you told me about what you did for the former government. Can you tell my audience what your job was and why it was important in defeating the Taliban?
So our job was to make sure the Taliban can't move forward against Afghan and U.S. Air Force in Afghanistan, and they can't fight against us. And about the executive order, Mr. Trump announced some weeks before, we have been shocked, me and my family, because of my past job with U.S. Air Force pilots. I have already been a target before 2021.
Can you tell me about that, Nasir? What happened?
Yes, because the Taliban suffered and faced a strong casualties from airstrikes, from Afghan Air Force airstrikes. So at that time, the Taliban focused to remove some pilots and people who were involved. So at that time, I was forced to live in Air Force base. I couldn't go out. I couldn't go to home. I just took 10 days of leave in a year at that time to spend it with my family. So I sacrificed a lot at that time because I was forced to live without my family, far from them. And after the collapse of the Afghan government, I was forced to live in hiding. So the Taliban, as I said before, with some other friends, they are not joking with anyone. Talibans are serious about what they are doing. So they are not forgiving their enemies. They are not forgiving the people who are threatening them. So they know who to remove from the society. And I was a main target for the Taliban fighters. So I was forced to live in hiding, and my 12-year-old son was forced not to go to school, but in school he's skipping 3 years of his school. So and I financially I lived paycheck to paycheck before the collapse of Afghan government. I didn't have any house and any personal car or any savings. So I lived a very good life. So after that I lost my job and my salary, and I faced financial difficulties, and I depended on French charity from US and from UK and from Germany. So life is like this in Afghanistan right now for me.
I can only imagine. I'm going to ask you a couple questions about that too. The strain of being in hiding for 3.5 years and all of those things. But I just want people in the audience, it's been 3.5 years since the fall. So I want to remind people that your story is not unique. It was such a quick change of power when the Taliban came into Kabul August 15th of 2021 that many departments had to leave things behind. And a lot of those things were lists of employment, employment lists and people who did certain things. And so the Taliban have been able to accumulate that proof of who was working for the former government, and we're still seeing those reprisals that they promised they would not conduct. They promised that there would be a general amnesty order for anyone who worked like you did, Nasir, for the former government. And that wasn't what happened. In fact, when some people came in and said, yeah, I worked for the former government and I'm putting down my arms, they were actually killed, either there or several days later, just mysteriously turning up dead. And so this continues today. I mentioned a couple episodes ago a report that I either read it wrong or the translation was different between the times I looked at it, but I thought that 5 members of the former Ministry of Interior were killed by the Taliban. It was 3. But still, that's 3 people who were hunted down just in the last few months and murdered by the Taliban because of what they did for the former government. And so, Nasir, I understand exactly why you wouldn't leave your home. And I also want to explain to people who might not be as familiar that it's not just the person who worked for the former government who is the target. It is often the family members, and I've even seen children. I've seen horrifying photos of young girls who had their hands cut off at the elbows because of what their parents did in the former regime. The Taliban are completely without compassion when it comes to seeking retribution against those who worked with us. So I want people to understand that what you are experiencing is totally normal in terms of what our former allies now have to live like, and that it's horrifying. And I'm so sorry for it. What has it been like for you for 3.5 years to be stuck in your home?
Actually, I expected to be evacuated in the first year after the collapse of the government, and it has been shocked me because my job was somehow very sensitive. As I said before, the Taliban suffered a lot from airstrikes, so they don't tolerate Afghan pilots, Afghan Air Force, Afghan commandos, so they are not behaving the same towards former Afghan government. They are behaving toward police one way, and toward the commandos and the Air Force another way. So they are not the same. They are putting some former Afghan government officers or soldiers on the job. So they are on the job with the Taliban. They are, because they want to show the world that they are accepting former Afghan governments. But the reality is different. They know the people who worked with U.S. government, U.S. allies. They know people who face them many casualties. They know people who are a threat in the future for them. So they divide former Afghan government officers in different categories. So they are behaving towards them differently. So as you said before, many former Afghan officers and soldiers have been killed by the Taliban soldiers. So they haven't been bring to the court to jail them or another way to punish them. They didn't punish any of them for those killing, for those, and the Taliban. The Taliban knows people how to behave towards them, and I have been facing many challenges. Taliban asked my family to show my whereabouts to the Taliban, and when my family said that Nasir is in United States, they forced my family to get out of our private home. So the Taliban gave that our private house to one of their commanders, and two other of my brothers were also commander in Air Force and Afghan Army. One of my brother was arrested twice by the Taliban and was tortured and was jailed for 6 months. And then we were able to sorry for my English.
No,
I apologize from all US audience, your audience, because of my English. I have many things to say, but I can't find the right word to tell my story in English. So we were able to, my father was able to take a passport for my brother, if the word is right, in another identity. So his name was one thing, and he get a passport with another name, and he was able to flee Afghanistan to Iran. So there are a lot of difficulties we have been facing in Afghanistan since the Taliban took power from 2021, and life here under the Taliban is extremely difficult, extremely dangerous. The Taliban, their intelligence are looking for people who worked with, and they are giving labels on those former government officer, national resistance fighters label. They put that label, or they put ISIS label. They put label that these former soldiers were thief or another kind of labels, and they kill them. And they're trying to repress any voice, any people who are a threat to them in the future.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And that's something that we've seen even in the West. I've reported on it, how the Taliban will kill their enemies and then say, oh, they were ISIS. Oh, they were this. Oh, they were that. And it's horrifying. And I want to go back to what you started with when you answered my question, which was that, you thought you would be evacuated, and you're in such a unique situation. You don't qualify for the special immigrant visa program, and that
Yes.
the USRAP had to be used as a way to put you through for a pathway to refugee status. Now, I'm going to ask you, just for anybody who maybe this is your first time listening in the last few weeks, for those of you who have watched a couple episodes in the last 2 weeks, I really apologize because this is all going to sound so repetitive, but it's important to understand. USRAP processing was supposed to take 12 to 18 months. And I can almost guarantee, based on what you're going to say when I ask you this question, Nasir, that you've been waiting a lot longer than 12 to 18 months to be processed for your Priority 1 application. It's such a problem, and I now I will let you answer that. I don't want to ask and answer your question for you, but when did you apply for the P-1 program, or when did someone apply for you? Because you can't self-apply for P-1 status. Someone has to put you forward.
Yes. I didn't apply for a P-1 case. I was referred to a P-1 case on October 2022. Before that time, I couldn't speak English, and so I didn't have any contact with that advisor I had worked with in Afghanistan. So I found his number, and I contacted him, and he was very, very happy to help me. So he referred me to a P-1 case. At that time, I was in Iran. I was working as a construction worker, so in Iran. When he emailed me that he referred me for P-1 case, and I received the ARR number. And a day after that, I came to Afghanistan, and on the email it said that I should be in a third country to start the process for my case. So I leave Afghanistan for Pakistan. I went to Islamabad to process my case on September 2022, and after 1 year of waiting there, I haven't received any email or any update, any phone call. I have received nothing from IOM or from care team or Department of State. So, and my passport was expired, my visa was expired, and at that time, Pakistan announced a new policy on illegal immigrant. So I was forced to leave Pakistan and came back to Afghanistan. And after that, I tried to transfer my case to be processed from Afghanistan. And on August 15, 2024, I received the first call from IOM, and after that, 1 month after that, I received the second call from IOM. Then in November 2024, I received the first call from care team. So I was about to receive the second call from care to introduce me for medical check, but unfortunately, Mr. Trump announced his new executive order, and everything suspended for an uncertain time.
I am just... That's so heartbreaking to hear that you finally got so close, and then to have this happen. How did that feel to you? I mean, obviously you had gone through a lot of disappointments and working so hard. I want people to know, Nasir, you told me before we started, you taught yourself to speak English during this period. I mean, that is a huge undertaking, and you did that in order to avail yourself of these programs that you qualify for. So it just shows you've had a lot of I think there are two responses to trauma. You can either just say, I can't move forward at all, or you can keep pushing and keep having hope that keeps you going and looking for any path. And you clearly seem to be somebody who has just kept finding a path. But what did this feel like when you heard about the suspension?
So this program, USRAP P-1 case, is a lifeline for me, who is living in fear for the past almost 4 years. And at this time, I try to learn English through self-study. So, and I learned that, but unfortunately, I don't have a practice in speaking English. I'm very good in writing English, but I didn't have anyone to speak with in English. Friends in US, they are so busy, they don't have time to practice speaking with me every day. So in Afghanistan, I was in hiding. I didn't have any friend to practice with. So I try to practice with myself. I have been talking to myself sometimes. So it seems very crazy, but I'm good in writing English. But that was something I could make myself busy with to not put too much pressure on my mind, because I have to be careful about my mind, about my psychological situation. So this was a great job I have done in the past 4 years, and today I received a book Age of Secularism, written by Charles Taylor. So I'm trying to study books in English and study books about secularism, about democracy, liberalism, because I know it's the future. It's the future, because in the future, two subjects are very important, in my opinion. One is the fight or the conflict between religion and secularism in Afghanistan, because the Taliban brought a bad experience to the Afghan people. They repressed Afghan people in the name of religion. So people in Afghanistan are having the same experience as the Iranian people have in the past 45 years. And that's one. And another subject I'm studying about is the peace and conflict resolution. So that would be, these two subjects are the future. So I want to be prepared for the future. So that's one thing. And I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic. I know Mr. Trump suspended the P-1 and P-2 process, but people like you, people like Sean Van Diver, other people are advocating for us, and this gave us hope. This restored hope in our life. So we are optimistic. I'm not hopeless. So I believe everything will be okay, just because the youth people are fighting for us. We have shared memories. We have shared history. We fight together. We sacrifice for each other. So they are. I don't believe if they are leaving me behind. So I believe in American promises. I believe in American people, and somehow I believe that the Secretary of Defense and the National Security Advisor, they served in Afghanistan, and I believe the person who served in Afghanistan, he is not leaving Afghans behind, because they have shared memories, and I believe in U.S. Colleagues. But of course, this is not something, we are not thinking the same. We are not feeling the same. So my wife and my 12-year-old son, they are not too optimistic, because they didn't live a very hard life that I did. Before 2021, 22, before U.S. troops came to Afghanistan, I was 7 and 8 years old, and I ran a automotive part car shop in Shindan district in Afghanistan. At that time, my father was in hiding from Taliban, so I was responsible to provide food for my family. At that age, I lived a difficult life, and I spent half of my years in army. I attended army school for 3 years. I attended National Military Academy for 4 years, and I served in the army. So I lived a difficult life, and I'm ready for any situation in my life. But my family are not, and I'm very sorry for them. And this breaks my heart when I see my 12-year-old son is not attending school because of me. And my wife is living a difficult life. So this is not just a security reason. As I said, we have financial difficulty, because I lived paycheck by paycheck, and after that I lost my job and lost the salary. So now I'm in hiding. I don't have any job. So I can't provide anything my wife and my child is asking for. So that's heartbroken, and that's makes me sometimes disappointed, and I lost my freedom. So that's something I can tolerate. But some things, but there are many things we cannot tolerate, because we have feeling towards our children, our wife, and I hope Mr. Trump and his cabinet reconsider this decision and help us and don't leave us behind.
I hope that you are correct, and I hope that some of those people hear this story, because I think your story is the perfect explanation of why we have to resume this processing, because it was really impacted a lot in the last 3.5 years. It was stop and go. It was a lot of difficulty that we put people we made promises to under, and I just think that you clearly you've seen what the Taliban can do. You understand it. That's why you did what you did, I would imagine. I guess that's the last question I have for you. Why did you choose to join? Because if you hadn't joined the Afghan military, maybe you could just be living a very not calm life. I don't think anyone can live a calm life under the Taliban, but you could be working. You could be, relatively anonymous. Why did you choose to join the Afghan military when you did?
My grandfather was a military officer, and I was enthusiastic to join army. So I wanted to serve my country. I wanted because we are facing 45 years of war and conflict in Afghanistan, and I believe that people who are in army can make our country a safe place. I believed in that, and I attended school when I was when I was 16 years old son, a child. So I attended army school, and after that I attended military academy of Afghanistan. I wanted to be a career officer. I wanted to serve my country. I am almost a nationalist officer, so I believe in Afghanistan, and I love Afghanistan. I love Afghan people and their unity and their culture. So I believe that we can push our country towards democracy, towards security, towards development. But unfortunately, there was many reasons that we couldn't reach those goals, and we lost the war in 2021. You know all the reasons. But my intention was to serve my country and to make my country a better place, and to leave Afghanistan with neighborings and with wars in peace. But unfortunately, everything went wrong, and I still believe that Afghanistan would have a better future, and the Taliban will be defeated in the future, and Afghan people will take the responsibility for their future, and we will work towards those goals. So we will fight for girls' right to education, for women's right to work, and we will work for a democratic Afghanistan.
I think, and you've obviously prepared yourself for that well, learning how to, learning those complex topics that will be so important when the Taliban, because even if the Taliban were militarily defeated, right, there would still be the need for a peace and reconciliation process. And so I think it's brilliant that you're looking into that and looking into secularism and all of those things. That's the future of Afghanistan. And I'm just really proud to know that that's how you are responding to this, even in the midst of all of the difficulty that is around you. I think it's really a testament to your character, and it's been an honor to have you here. Do you have any final words, Nasir, that you want to share with the audience?
Thank you very much. I just, my last word is very simple. I ask U.S. Citizens and U.S. government not to forget us and not to turn their back to us. We expect them to help us and to stand with us, because we sacrificed, we fight together, we fight for a shared goal. So we don't expect them to forget us.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to share this with people, and thank you so much for joining me. I want to thank everyone who watched today, and I'll just say that if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you are subscribed and that you've enabled notifications on the YouTube page. Also, if you have questions or you think that you'd like to tell your story on the podcast, please send me an email at the Afghanistan Project Podcast at gmail.com. Until next time, Tasha Kaur, and hope to see you again soon.